broadcast as part of our Oneness and 12 Spheres of Life program. It's great to be with you. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities team, and we have a really exciting program in store for you today. I'm here with my very special co-host, Anna-Marie Pieterse, who's live out of South Africa, and our very special guest, Michele Hunt. Michele has served in many important capacities, including as part of Bill Clinton's transition team. Be sure to stay tuned for the full hour. Okay, a quick introduction to Humanities team as we get started. In Humanities team, we believe that there is only one presence. We call it the divine, though others could call it life or universe. We're all emanations of this one presence. It's true for each of us in all of life. It doesn't matter how far our lives may be from reflecting this truth, it's still true. Our invitation is to live in communion with the divine and be an authentic expression of the presence, peace, and power that are our true essence. When we do this, we live in sacred relationship. We don't need to be perfect or even excellent. We're invited to simply receive God's love and be an expression of that, each in our own way, to the best of our ability. In this way, we add to the light in the world and we create processes to protect and nurture humanity and life on our precious planet. We can be intentional about this, so we live this way each day. When we do this together, we create the world that we know is ours. Let's not forget that our small steps each day lead us in a direction that become our life and our destiny. So let's make the best of each moment and each day. Okay, concerning today's program with Michele, we invite you to share your questions by placing them in the chat window. The sooner the better. This way we can get to them during the 60-minute program. You might go ahead and begin sharing your comments and questions below now. You'll see the chat window where you can leave your comments and questions. Okay, my partner and co-host, Anna-Marie Pieterse, is going to go next. She is the co-coordinator of the Oneness and 12 Spheres of Life program and the country coordinator for South Africa. She's brilliant, very personal, and a good friend to all of us. And she's going to share about the sphere that we're focusing on this month. And welcome again here, Anna-Marie, to the program.
Oh, thank you, Steve, and welcome to you too. It's always an honor to be with you. I'm just so grateful to be with you, to co-create with you, and to be in these fantastic, very important conversations. So thank you, Steve. So, Steve, as you said, let me go right into a short overview of the sphere. So we set the stage for our discussion today. So basically, in the sphere of media, we speak of the means of the spreading of information and entertainment among people. Human beings are constantly bombarded with countless messages that come in myriads of forms and shapes. They come as thoughts, symbols, dreams, and all kinds of ways, with the internet and technology playing an ever-growing and powerful role. We are indeed part of the big mind. We are shaping our world, and we are being shaped by the world through these messages and our interpretation of them. When we are considerate of our oneness, our communication and connections with the billions of others that we share space with in this global brain reflect conscious connection and communication, ensuring that we co-create the sustainable world of peace and prosperity for all that we've been dreaming of, instead of recreating that which we do not want. We are truly excited to be in conversation with our special guest today, but more about Michele Hunt as you introduce her to our audience next, Steve. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Anna-Marie. I always set the table so well here for these programs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read a brief introduction for our special guest now. Michele Hunt has a very diverse background. In 1992, Michele served on President Bill Clinton's transition team. In 1993, she was appointed by President Clinton to serve as the executive director of the Federal Quality Institute, with its mission to partner with government leaders in reinventing U.S. government agencies. Michele has an impressive history in executive leadership capacities. She spent 13 years with Herman Miller, Inc., a Fortune 500 global office furniture company. With a number of other impressive achievements in between, Michele began her career with the Michigan Department of Corrections as one of the first two female probation officers to supervise adult male felons on probation in Detroit, Michigan. She served as executive director of Michigan's only halfway house for female felons and later became Michigan's first female deputy warden, leading programs for rehabilitation in a male prison. Michele has served as an adjunct professor at Georgetown University in the executive education program at the McDonough School of Business. She served as a facilitator of tomorrow's corporation at the Aspen Institute. Michele is the author of the Dream Makers book series, numerous articles, and a blog, and she collaborated on the Dream Makers film. She's a strategic advisor and a keynote speaker. And welcome to our 12 Spheres program. Michele, great to have you with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this very important conversation.
All righty. Well, we're going to just jump right in here. And also thank you, viewers, for bringing in comments and questions. We're going to get to those here shortly. So we've got a lot of ground to cover here with Michele. So, and Michele, as we were introducing you, we're touching on you as a strategic advisor, an author, and a keynote speaker. And we noticed that you cover all of this under the umbrella of Dream Makers. So we're guessing that the dream plays an important role in all that you do. Do you want to just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I believe in the power of a compelling vision, which I call dreams. When people co-create a powerful shared vision that's born out of their deeply held shared values with a community of people, and then they have the courage and the freedom to change and align everything to serve that vision and those core values, miracles happen. And I've seen it over and over and over again. You were reading my bio, and all of those different venues were just that, venues to really develop and play with this concept that people are extraordinary and capable of co-creating extraordinary things when they're mobilized around something that really matters to them. And what we're doing, really, you talked about the divine, we're calling on the divine power within us to co-create something beautiful. But it's very powerful when that is a shared vision with a collection of people. And I've seen it in prisons, I've seen it in corporations, I've seen it in the toughest environment possible, which is the US government. And I've seen it in communities and even an island country. Really, just a little kind of caveat. I've been a student of Dream Makers all my life. I was born into the most powerful, loving dream makers anyone could ever encounter, and that's my parents, Ted and Leona Hunt. They came from terrible environments in the inner city of Detroit, but when they got married, they made a conscious decision to create a shared vision and shared values of the kind of family they wanted to create and the kind of values they wanted to use to navigate the decisions they would make in our journey. And it's been a fabulous journey.
Well, you sound very blessed. You can tell, Michele, growing up in a family like that. Also, just we did put in the window the dreammakers.org web link, so you can click on that link if you like. And again, this is a live program, so I invite you to share your questions and comments in the window. And over to you, Anna Marie.
Oh, wonderful, Michele. I share your belief in the dream. It is so important. I think we easily speak about that, isn't it? About a vision and a goal, but I don't know if we focus on it enough. And we're going to go a little bit more into that a little while later. But for now, I want to stay a little bit more in the playground that we in the place where you play, which is on a high level, a strategic advisor for companies and organizations, even governments and communities and so on. So before we go down, to the community level and so on, I'd like to ask, when we look at corporations and big organizations, what, to your finding, are the critical things that you think need to change in this high level? This may be a big question. And then secondly, because this is what you're doing, this is your expertise, what are some of the critical aspects involved in bringing about change? So what is it that we do on this high level to bring about change?
I think the best way I can answer that big question, because it is a big question, it's a deep question, is to share the Herman Miller story, and then just kind of share the key aspects of our milestones in that journey. Herman Miller's a Fortune 300 company, or it was at the time I was there. And I had the good fortune of working for a very visionary, value-based leader, Max Dupree. He wrote the book Leadership as an Art, just a phenomenal person. He was the founder's son of the company. And his belief in shared vision and shared values ran very deep. It came out of their faith, actually, but they believe that people are made in the image of the divine. And so if they're made in the image of the divine, who are we to put boundaries and limits on their potential and their ability to contribute to making the company a success? So, however, we grew exponentially, and although we were values-based and vision-led for many, many years, we got in trouble when we became successful. Nothing feels like success because we had not transferred the values or institutionalized the values as we grew. And literally on our watch, my title was Corporate Vice President for People. And that tells you a lot about the insight of the leader. But we got into trouble, and the company probably, if we had stayed on the course we were on, would have died because it was just that dramatic. And Max Dupree then took the top management team and locked us away in a hotel and said, come up with a shared vision for the kind of company we want to become, a shared dream. And so we played around with our resumes for a while because we thought we were just going to get kicked, they were going to replace the whole top management team. But fortunately, one of my colleagues said, let's try. And we did create a vision. We brought it back to Max Dupree, who was the CEO and chairman. And he said, great, it's the start, but it didn't get you up in the morning. It was profitability, it was market share, stuff like that. And he said, now design a disciplined process to bounce it through every person in leadership worldwide. And we were in every market, free market in the world. And we did, and it got greater, it got deeper, it got more beautiful because they were closer to the product, closer to the people, closer to the customers and the communities. But then he really upped the bar and he said, now bounce it through every team in the company, including teams in the mailroom. Every single person must have the opportunity to embellish and the vision. And it just went, they collectively came up with, the major theme was, we want to be a reference point for excellence by any measure. Now this is the key, by any measure. So when you say by any measure and you're a public company, you're like, wait a minute, can we do that? And Max said, why not? Bounce that vision. Then he went and asked what would be the core values that would guide our decisions, our behavior, everything that we would have to integrate into the company to become a reference point for excellence. And they came up with 7 values, and just a couple of them. One was family, social, and environmentally responsibility. You're talking about 1987. One was we navigate the company through participation and teamwork. Ownership, shared ownership, that people had the right and the responsibility to participate in the risk and the rewards of the business. And the financial was a consequence of all, valuing uniqueness. That was what most people would call diversity, but we wanted people to bring their whole self, their mind, hearts, imagination, and background to the table, to the party, to co-create this big vision. Within 18 months, we became the best company in America to work for. We held that for many years. Best company for women, best company for working mothers, best managed company in the world by the Bertelsmann Foundation out of Germany, most environmentally responsible company, And on top of that, we financially, the next 3 years, we had two stock splits.
Wow.
And so again, it's this whole idea that if people have a shared vision, and shared means that they authentically participate in the co-creation of that vision. And if it's born out of our deeply held shared values, kind of values that transcend boundaries. I mean, it's people values, you know, to be valued, to be heard, to participate. And then they're liberated to share their ideas in making the change, totally aligning everything. Now that means we had to align policy, systems, structures, communication, most important, leadership and management behavior. And it was, you know, we got all those accolades, but the beautiful thing was you can walk into any Herman Miller facility anywhere in the world and you could feel all that joy and love. Because people were allowed to express it. In the plants, for instance, there were fresh flowers in the break areas. And it wasn't like if this was structured, people were guided by the vision and values. And so they'd look around and say, what do we need to do, change and align to live those values? It's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. And I think seeing that we are in the conversation that we're having today also revolves around communication. So the importance of communication. So people are involved in the creating of the vision and the values, but it's so important that it is shared, that knowledge and that energy is shared among the people, so that it becomes part of them. And I can see that this is what you managed to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, by participating, that's the greatest way to communicate. Okay, yeah. Because it gets into your heart, mind, and soul. But we did have structured, very an abundant, predictable communications on an ongoing basis. We stopped the company once a month, and the leadership team would say, now, here, remember, this is our vision, these are our values, here's how we're doing against those, and here are our challenges. And then everyone would go back to their teams and say, okay, celebrate the wins, and what can we do to mitigate the challenges? So communication, abundant, predictable, structured, disciplined communication in a large-scale organization is critical. And with that, the leader has to walk the talk. The greatest communication you can ever do is the leadership walking the talk in every aspect. That was the hardest for all of us because, wow, you know, we had to change our total behavior, our mindset about what the role of leadership is. We had to move to servant leadership, what Robert Greenleaf writes about. We had to, Max put commissioned a sculpture and put it in the corporate headquarters courtyard, and it was of a water carrier. And a Native Hauser, the Native American sculptor, designed it. And it was the role of leadership is to carry water to the people so that they can serve the mission, vision, and values. And he put one outside his office, a mini one, a miniature one, to remind him every time he walked in what his role was. And so we had to personally, I believed in these concepts, but, you know, I had come from the prison, you know, when I joined Herman Miller, and, you know, that was a totally different environment. I learned a lot about dream makers in the prison, but I had to relearn what my role was as a leader, and then really, you know, authentically get into aligning my heart and my mind to the mission and vision. And we needed help to do that. We brought in Pieterse in 1987. We brought in Peter Drucker came in and helped us. Meg Wheatley came in and helped us. And these wonderful, and then we were meditating back then. We brought in meditation because we had meditation centers all over the place because we understood this kind of transformation required mindfulness and reflection.
Yes.
So when you say key aspects, I'm just trying to, I think telling the story, you can hear the key aspects. Having a shared vision. It's born out of your deeply held shared values, and then liberating people to contribute their gifts, and then aligning the structure. Corporations and organizations, period, are not designed for living, breathing human beings that have the spirit and all of this beauty inside of them. They're organized to control. So we had to change everything.
That is fantastic. You answered that deep question so beautifully. I'm inspired. Thank you, Michele. Beautiful.
Yeah, truly. That is, what an extraordinary story. I mean, you started out with Herman Miller was in trouble and would go out of business. So that was our starting point. And then we get to, well, it's the greatest, honored as sort of the greatest company out there. And you covered a lot there, Michele. That is extraordinary. I used to be an entrepreneur myself, and nonprofit world actually isn't so different. Going from that level of challenge to what you grew into, where people created that vision together and they're walking that talk together. There are very few leaders that I've met that can orchestrate something like that. So, and that's a truly extraordinary thing that happened, which of course that's why you're telling us about it. How do you now? How do you the gift? How do you take the gift of that experience out in the world so that it becomes leverage for other organizations and other people? How are you kind of multiplying that success as you continue as an author and speaker, doing all the things that you're doing?
Right. Basically, I use that process, but you can't just come in and implant the process, right? I spend a significant amount of time with the leader, asking them, tell me what's important to you in life. So we have to first establish kind of a shared agreement of where he or she wants to take the company, but that's got to be rooted in who they really are and who they inside. And so those initial meetings with the CEOs or the leader, because I do nonprofits as well, academia, but we're all people, and we're just put in all these different boxes. So the reason the process is literally fail-proof is because everyone wants to be valued. Everyone wants to participate. Everyone wants to be heard. And it's a process that kind of just liberates that. But if you start with the leader and then have them ask them some strength-based questions that's rooted in their life. What were the defining moments in your life that brought you to this point? What's important to you in life? What is your grandest vision of what this organization can become? And speak to me on multiple levels, not just money, but on how do you want people to feel? How do you want people to be? And so we have these conversations. And generally what happens is that that leader begins to discover themselves by strength-based questions. And so this is how we did it with all the people at Herman Miller. This is how we did it in prison. And then once they're on board, then we bring the process. But even in bringing the process, I asked for an internal design team to help tailor that process. And because it's not, don't think of process as a rigid thing. Process, the flow of those major components to the particular culture of that organization. And the design team has to be cross-functional, cross-level. And to really give it power, I asked each member of the leadership team to nominate or to select their highest potential people, so that there's a lot of investment And then they work as a team. And so you have, instead of the stovepipes, they're functioning as a team, co-creating the process to create the vision, the values, and then to help make the change happen. And all teams in the company help make the change happen. You put together cross-company teams called action teams to close the gap between the vision and values and the current reality.
Yeah, I can see how you'd be a very valuable strategic advisor.
Yeah, sure.
So, and there are questions coming in from viewers. We'll get to your, thank you, viewers. We'll get to your questions here momentarily. Anna Marie and I are going to just get to a few more, and then we'll go to questions from viewers. Anna Marie, yeah, over to you.
So Michele, that's wonderful. Before we step away from that question, so what is do you think that there's a change when it comes to this, where companies are beginning to what maybe I can refer to as getting more into the heart, into the soft space of what it means to do business? Do you think people are beginning to feel that desire to do things differently?
There is a robust movement of companies who have visionary leaders that are moving in that direction. The benefit corporations. I mean, there's almost 3,000 companies worldwide that are a part of that movement, and their motto or their mantra is business as a force for good. And they are very committed to that, not only within their own organizations, but they come together twice a year and in ad hoc ways as the leaders to kind of learn and grow from one another and get recommitted and renewed to that mission, business as a force for good. And they're serious about transcending that value being transcends their organizations. I write about it in the latest book, Dream Makers, Innovating for the Greater Good. There's also, where I met you, Steve, at the Global Forum. There are over 700 companies around the world who are looking at business as an agent of world benefit, where you can make money by doing good. You can instead of this old mindset, profit over people or profit over planet or profit over community, that we can address some of the most seemingly intractable problems by using innovations from business. And you can make money at the same. It doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and scenario. And once people see that, and that's what happened at the Herman Miller story that I just showed you was doing well by everyone benefited. Everyone, the community benefited. The planet benefited. Children. Matter of fact, our change teams, the communications change team, came up with a metaphor that we needed to keep in mind of an 8-year-old child. And it went like this: if an 8-year-old child sees a red Herman Miller truck, they have a feeling of excellence. And so, when you think about the benefits and consequences of that, we couldn't spew stuff in the environment, or that kid wouldn't feel excellence when they think of Herman Miller. We couldn't keep their family from attending their plays or soccer games. So we had to redesign everything. It's a powerful way. And not only is it powerful for the company, it's powerful for everyone that can be a part of this participative process where they're able to lend their God-given gifts, and be valued and rewarded for it.
So let me keep going in this direction that Anna Marie shared out, where we're bringing in this dimension of heart and soul, of consciousness, of flourishing, of sacred relationship, into organizations. And of course, Michele, you signed the Conscious Business Declaration, and in fact, Chris Laszlo was a major contributor to the development of the Conscious Business Declaration. He's written a book called Flourishing Enterprise, which I'd recommend to all of our viewers. It really talks about how do we go in conscious business, how do we go beyond the three bottom line, people, planet, profit, which is very valuable. It's a great contribution to business. We call that first wave conscious business, and then conscious capitalism that starts walking in elements of what consciousness is. We call that second wave, and then this conscious business where we can go all the way to flourishing beyond sustainability, where we're bringing in the fullness of consciousness, which we call a fourth P, presence. So people, planet, profit, and presence. And presence is this sacred relationship thing. It's things that we're talking about here now, where we're talking about made in people and plant life and animal life and the earth, all made in the likeness and image of the divine. And that's what, and of course, Chris is a great voice for, we've really got to go all the way to flourishing and where we, all the way to, I don't know that he used the term sacred relationship, but he's certainly talking about that. We're a bit out on the bleeding edge with this, where we're talking about this being the culture of the organization. It's actually a lot of what you described as I was listening to your story about Herman Miller. So it felt like that was a lot of maybe what was operative. But so creating a culture like that where collaboration is in sacred relationship and decision-making is in sacred relationship, that it's a conscious organization. So what are your thoughts on that? Are we stepping out in that direction? Is this the future? What do you see?
Yeah, I'm an unapologetic optimist. So maybe because of that, these stories come to me. And remember, my book is Dream Makers, and I've shine a light on organizations and communities that are doing just what you're saying. And I kind of talk about it in terms of liberating the human spirit, to do something meaningful in the world. And so it doesn't matter what the setting is. This is important. It is that we are all, as you say, we have within us the divine spirit, the divine power, the divine light. And it's really liberating that spirit so that light can shine. And I have seen miracles happen, in the prison, okay, I was over programs for rehabilitation. It was a brand new prison, and I was reluctant to go, but the governor talked me into it, being the first woman and the first Black. Since it was a new prison, I said, quid pro quo. I'll take the job if you give me the opportunity to experiment. And so what we did, we created something called a responsibility model, and everyone had to share in it. The custody staff, my treatment staff, and then we recruited 159 community volunteers that brought in their skills. And so we had a shared vision that we wanted to create an environment that was beyond confinement, but it was an environment and we were using words like flourishing, where people could pursue their potential. And so the inmates, and the community volunteers and the staff were put in teams, and they co-created the design of programs that affected them. So the prisoners had equal to the teachers, the psychologists, the ministers, the religious services, the custody staff. They facility teams were put together and created the recreation program, the education program, the arts program. And I would tell you, I saw Dream Makers in the most unlikely place blossom and then flourish. And it was an environment, so much that Holland, Zeeland, Michigan, which is a very conservative area and very anti-prison, but because we brought them in, come on down and participate, they got excited once they saw that they had the opportunity to participate in designing this in partnership with the young men and the staff. And so it got to be such a robust, beautiful thing that their sports program in Holland and Zealand invited the prisoner sports teams to be in their intramurals. Of course, they'd have to come into prison to play them. You know? But it doesn't matter what the setting is. We are all fundamentally fueled by the same beauty and power. But our problem is we have these stupid structures and core assumptions about people that have to be burst. There is a movement, to answer your original question, there is a robust movement of companies and people, heads of organizations, not just companies, that are discovering and growing this evolving movement of liberating the human spirit to do something great.
Yeah, I love that, liberating the human spirit, which is for people to really understand this aspect that I am an emanation of the divine, which then liberates the human spirit. I love that turn of phrase.
That's a Max Dupree. I have to give credit. That's Max Dupree, the CEO and chairman of Herman Miller during when he was there, and who ended up being my mentor and second father. For over 30 years.
Well, he's a great leader, no question. I'll go read about him. Over to you, Anna Marie.
Yeah, it's the wonderful thing that is part of your Dream Makers idea, Michele, that I just caught on more, that I understand a little bit better now is, you're talking about the importance of shining the light on what works. And I so agree with you. I'm also the founder of the Ubuntu Civics Academy here in South Africa, and coincidentally today is our what we call Ubuntu Thursday. And on this day, we are shedding the light on what is working in our lives, in our community. Because what we shed light on what is working in our communities, they become those living laboratories, isn't it? Isn't that so?
Absolutely.
So this is where knowledge and inspiration gets spawned, and it makes it possible for us to go and create the next success and the next success. And we're living in such amazing times today where the media and communication makes it more and more possible for us, isn't that so? So the scale becomes unimaginable of what we can do.
Well, Anna Marie, you in South Africa, you folks had one of the greatest transformations ever, and when you dissect what happened there, I mean, almost enemies came together around a compelling shared vision that was greater than themselves or greater than their individual agendas, and then created a win-win-win scenarios on how can we do this together. And I was there like 2 years after the transformation, and people were telling me, cab drivers, excuse me, were telling me, Michele, leave the United States and come here and be freer than you are as an African American there. And I was like, wow, So Anna Marie, it would be helpful to share with the people who might not know what the definition of Ubuntu.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. I refer to Ubuntu as our greatest African spiritual gift to this world. So when you, the common definition is I am because we are. It's maybe that's the way to explain it. There are many ways to look at that. So you can say it is I am because we are. So who I am is inextricably bound to who you are. That is one thing. So my being is shaped through you, and vice versa. And then there's another aspect to Ubuntu that I like to highlight, and that is that when you dissect the word itself, Ubu means to become. And Muntu is an African root word that points to our highest being or our highest potential. So Ubuntu then in that sense points to the person, but not a sacred person, because from this worldview, all of life and the human being, everything is sacred. So it points to the person, all of life, and the whole cosmos in a process of becoming its highest potential.
Yeah, it's a powerful word.
It's so powerful. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Boy, and Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela, who really, walk these terms in, and you were earlier sharing, Michele, about what leaders that are walking their talk. Boy, now are these leaders that walk their talk, and therefore, are Nelson Mandela probably the greatest leader of our time, and Desmond Tutu not far behind that. So, two of the just great icon leaders of our time, based right there in South Africa.
Yep.
Well, let me get to viewer questions, because thank you. Viewers just, we've lit up the screen here now. So we'll get to as many questions as we can. Thank you. Ralph asks, and Ralph is part of the Conscious Business Change Agent program, which CBCA, I think he's out in Norway, if I've got that right. He says, what was the most difficult aspect for you personally to change from when you were manifesting servant leadership?
I think the difficult thing was I had viewed, even though I was raised in a beautiful way with my Dreammaker parents and with some phenomenal core values, I was very influenced by what I learned in school, and that was antithetical to what I was taught about the beauty of people, and it was much more competition, grades, all that stuff. So I came up through like the Department of Corrections, looking at the role of leadership as a status versus a function. So the hardest transformation was to realize people, it's a function to help achieve this greater goal. And so that changes everything, when you see that you're a servant leader. Your function is to carry water. So, that's a tough transformation, because, your teachers teach you that, they are the expert, they are right. You're in many families, not in ours, because we had a highly participative family where we voted on everything. But you're taught that, there's one answer and the teacher or the parent has it. So the hardest thing was to turn these core basic assumptions that we are raised with, to shatter those and to start with in here and discover what are the real assumptions about who we are. What are the real core values of who we can become versus the boxes and boundaries we've been put in. That was hardest for me. And I stumbled a lot. And fortunately, I've always surrounded myself with great people on my team, and they challenged me tremendously and kept checking me. They wouldn't let me get away with not walking my talk.
Wow. Well, Michele, and one of the people's asking here is there, they're saying, is there training is there training, in the model that we're talking about? So, and I think let me just say, at the end of the program, we'll talk about this. If you go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org, you can actually read the Conscious Business Declaration, and their founding signatories are up there. You'll see Michele is one of the founding signatories, and there's an instructor team then that trains, and we go through. There's actually a peer-reviewed process to become a Conscious Business Change Agent, or CBCA. And Michele, I want to say, boy, we're going to reach out to you. You'd be, just incredible faculty for this program, and Chris is part of the program. You'd be incredible faculty. And I think also, if you go to Michele's website, she's sharing, she's a keynote speaker, she's a strategist. So if you go to Michele's website, we'll put that up again in the screen. She does offer consulting services here, right, Michele?
I'm a catalyst, not a consultant, because I don't come with answers. I come with a process that helps you tap into the minds, hearts, and imagination of the people. Only reason I have strategic advisors because people wouldn't understand. It's very difficult to explain what I do. But I do advise on a process, but as a catalyst.
Yeah, boy, that's beautiful. You
but
really are.
Also, aside from the training that you folks offer, for the person who asked the question, stories, learning from stories, because in my Dream Makers, and this is my third Dream Maker book and then the film, one of the questions I ask is, how did they do it? And it's, I ask, start with what's the defining moments in your life, what's your vision, all of that, and, what were the obstacles, how did you overcome them? But I learn best through stories. And so one way in which is to read about and listen to the stories of people who've had the courage and to go to take this journey. There's a lot of wisdom, but there's also a lot of, to-dos, how-to in those stories. We did it this way, and we did this, and we did this. And so there's a lot of actual pathways. Yeah, practical. Thank you, Anna Marie. Practical ideas and
wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask a question that I'm going to direct to both of you. But Anna Marie, did you want to say anything before I go to this next question?
No, Steve, please go ahead. Okay,
and this is from Don. We don't ever share last names on this program. He's an MD. He says. So I'll ask you first, Michele, and then Anna Marie, just from the whole Ubuntu perspective. So why do we fill our world with fear, scarcity, hate, and war when we want and need happiness, abundance, love, and peace? Einstein's answer was, we shall require a newer way of thinking. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we're living in an old story, and we need a brand new story. And that brand new story has to be based on new assumptions about life and how we're connected to each other. This whole system of connections that we have. We are Ubuntu. We are connected. And maybe it was just the evolution, but maybe we're just at a point in time, but we are at a point in time where this shift is happening. Make no mistake, I travel 70% of the time around the world. And, you saw that one of my books are Brazilian dream makers. All these dream makers that I have interviewed have the same, I was always talking to the same person. So, these shared points of view, assumptions, fundamental assumptions about life. And so I think we're just now discovering that, okay, why don't we do form follows function? If in fact I want to be valued, I want to polish my gifts, I want to be heard, I want to participate. That means you want to participate, you want to be heard, so you want to be valued. So then throw out the whole design and design something that enables that to happen. And so we've got to get rid of these old structures. We are caught in old destructive structures, mindset being the most important, and heart set. But if you liberate the heart and understand that the heart serves the mind doesn't really serve the heart, then you'll discover almost intrinsically some of this stuff will come to us. That's why meditation and mindfulness practices, without having to go to school about it or go retrained about it, you change fundamentally, because you're allowing the divine spirit to educate us and to guide us, And so it's there is a movement. It's a robust movement, and it's like water, though. It's underground water rising. It's really close to the top. And all the conflict we're seeing, the hate and fear based, that had to be there to create the chaos to get to the point where we say we can't take it anymore. There's got to be a better way. And so it gives the compelling reasons for us to fundamentally transform.
Yeah, beautiful. Boy, reminds me of the parable about we need new wineskins, consciousness, presence, sacred relationship.
Yeah.
Emanation of the divine, all these key themes that we're returning to. So Beautiful, Michele. Thank you. And Anna Marie, can I throw that same question at you?
Yeah, I'll be brief. Thank you, Steve. I go back to exactly what Michele said in the beginning. For me, it's the dream, it's the vision. And Ubuntu, when you say I am because we are, you are expressing a vision. You are saying what you're observing. You're admitting that I can see that I am because we are. I really believe that the world is in the shape that it is because of our broken connection. And Ubuntu and the oneness confirms that no, the connections aren't broken. We just need to remember. So it is about uniting people around that common dream, the common dream of our oneness, the common dream of Ubuntu. That to me is what is missing, and what is the answer.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The timeless truth, the ancient truth, that we are all one, and really living it out, living into the unity of all of life, and making sure our walk is really there with our talk, because that's what people are paying attention to, not anything that we're saying anyway. So, well, beautiful. Let me go this Dreammaker series of books and films and so on that you've brought in here, Michele. Do you want to? You've referenced them a little bit. Do you want to? And you've said you're in series 3 or going to series 4. What? You want to talk a little bit about them? They sure sound fascinating and powerful.
I just went around the world interviewing people who had a big dream and made that dream come true against tremendous obstacles, and shined a light on it. But it had to be a positive and compelling dream that was born out of or rooted in some deeply held shared values that my bias, love, beauty, flourishing, those kinds of values, and shined a light so that people can see it's possible. And that's the whole purpose of this, is to share these stories, like B corporations, or there's a story about there's the junior enterprise, which is a global movement of over 50,000 millennials who have over hundreds of enterprises. They're running hundreds of enterprises of socially responsible businesses. And they come together, it's literally a movement. And they believe in everything we're talking about. Now, you're talking about 50,000 people from Tunisia, from Paris, from, every, city and country that you can think of. It was actually was founded in Paris in 1967, but it picked up steam over the last 2012, and then and so now they're wanting to change the world, and they're integrating it into the way. So they call themselves social entrepreneurs. They make money, but they make a social impact. So I shine a light on 4 of those. One, the Paris chapter, the Brazil chapter, the French chapter, the Brazil chapter, the Tunisian chapter. Yeah, 3 of them. So they're all different. Aruba is a whole country that mobilized around a shared vision. And they basically were seeing their island nation deteriorating. They were attracting tourists that weren't respecting them, their language, or the environment. And so they decided to create a shared vision. They did something beautiful. They started with the kids. I was actually brought in by the Prime Minister of Finance. And so we put together a steering team, which was cross-island, cross-sector. But all we did was argue for the first couple of months. And then brilliantly, someone came up with the idea, let's start with the children, put the children in the center. We put the children on the steering team too. And then they bounced throughout every school. What is your vision for Aruba? This was 1998. What is your vision for Aruba 2005? And they could express it in song, in dance, in essays, in paintings, however they want. All this stuff came in, and we worked with their university to distill it into major themes. And they came up with 9 different themes from, we're proud of our they have 93 different nationalities, ethnic groups represented. And so we're proud of our multicultural diversity. And our language. So they have made their language, which is Papiamento, which is Dutch, Spanish, English, and India. So they made that a formal language instead of it being referred to as a bastard language. They did spiritual development was the last one. How they're governed, how businesses will act, the environmental. I mean, it's 9 different statements of their vision that are part of this vision. And it just was remarkable. And again, it starts with self, because people were not proud of who they were because they had been colonized for so long, got their independence in 1976, but they had never stopped to reflect on, okay, that means we're different. We're not colonized. We are not second citizens. So who do we want to become? What are our strengths? How do we allow who we are to flourish? And they came together collectively around co-creating that, with putting the children in as the goal.
Boy, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we need a strategic advisor, which every organization can use, you're outstanding. We're going to be reaching out to you, Michele. Who wouldn't want to be at arm's distance from you? So let me share also, I referenced, because Michele you're in Ohio, right, Michele?
No, I'm actually in Detroit.
Oh, now. In Detroit. Okay.
Yeah. I
know you work with Case Western Reserve University, though, closely, right?
Yeah.
Because I referenced Chris Laszlo just a moment ago, and also David Cooperrider's part of Global Oneness Day this year. He was on the Conscious Business panel. So both of these incredible men work with Michele. So just to honor Case Western Reserve University and the really good things.
And Champlain. Champlain University, which is the Stiller School of Business, which David Cooperrider is the David Cooperrider Center for Appreciative Inquiry. So
yes, and of course
I'm on both of those advisory boards. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that in. Yeah, David Cooperrider created Appreciative Inquiry. So when we're talking about conscious business, it's actually a practice that has spread all over the world, and he's just a huge contributor to what conscious business is blossoming into. So big shout out to both of these universities. Yeah. Thank you. And so we're actually out. What website can people go to, Michele, to follow your work again?
Yes, it's www.dreammakers.org.
Okay, fantastic. And so I apologize that we're out of time, because I'd love to hear calls to action, but we've sprinkled the calls to action throughout here, haven't we, Anna Marie? So, just big thank you, Anna Marie Pieterse, who is the co-coordinator at 12 Spheres, and just for this program, amazing wisdom. Michele Hunt, thank you. Wow, fabulous. So that'll be my just beginning point here insofar as thanking you all. I'll come back and thank you some more here before we close the program. Let me just share a few things as we're closing. Humanities Team is a key member of this Conscious Business Alliance that I've referenced. There were 4 NGOs you can see in the slide here. The Case Western Reserve University with the Fowler Center of Business, the Club of Budapest, the Goy Peace Foundation, and Humanities Team created this Conscious Business Declaration. You can see the link there, consciousbussinessdeclaration.org. Invite you to go check it out, read it, and if you resonate with it, invite you to sign it. And you can also look into the Conscious Business Change Agent training and certification process if that interests you. On the screen now, you'll see the Oneness Declaration. This is the thing that preceded the Global Oneness Day. If you go to humanitiesteam.org and scroll down, you'll see the Oneness Declaration. I invite you to click on it and read it. And if you resonate with that, we invite you to sign that also. Very important declaration. We're going to be bringing that to the United Nations here when we get to 100,000 signatures. Upcoming programs you don't want to miss. You can see there on the screen My special guest for this next program, it's on October 4th at 9 a.m. Pacific. Karen Noe is the co-host of Global Oneness Day this year with me and Stephen Donaco. She is a Hay House author who wrote a book called We Consciousness, which all of the things that we're talking about during today's program with Michele are in this amazing book called We Consciousness. So tune in to our program on October 4th, Thursday, October 4th, 9 o'clock Pacific. We're going to preview this amazing Global Oneness Day program. You can also go to globalonenesssummit.org or just Google Global Oneness Day, and then you can go to the link. You'll see the program. It's free. If you miss any part of the program, we're sending out links for all of the programs so that you can listen for free for a week following the program that's being aired on Wednesday, October 24th. So be sure to check that out. This program is focused on living in oneness, so we want to invite you to something called Community Circle. It's only $10 a month. It's an intentional community for those living in oneness globally. There are over 400 videos such as this one, and also audios that you can listen to anytime, anywhere with family and friends. There's a Facebook page. There's a reading, a book, a club. There's also our Zoom programs where, just like this, we're coming on the screen and sharing personally about our stories. All of that for only $10 a month. So want to invite you to that if it resonates with you. So I want to come back again. Let me just thank you here again. Michele Hunt, Anna Marie Pieterse, our producers, Garth Catterall and Christine Glenn, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer. There's a whole group within Humanities Team that creates these programs. And then just a special thank you to you, the viewers, that make this program possible and that make Humanities Team possible. Thank you for being a part of the team. So, and in closing, I want to just invite everybody to really do what we're talking about on this program, live as one. Of course, we're all going to do this in our own way. We'll draw in this presence, peace, and power, this sacred relationship, which we keep coming back to. It's the central theme of this program. I invite you to really live into that, live into the unity of all of life, because that's how we create this dream that Michele's been talking about. So again, thank you, Michele, Anna Marie. Thank you, all of you. And we're back on the air on October 4th at 9 o'clock Pacific with Karen Noe. Be sure to join us for that program.
And thank you,
okay, you all. Big
it's great being with you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Love and thanks and namaste. Yeah, really a great program. Thanks so much. Michele, we'll be staying in touch with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. It's been a real pleasure.
Bye-bye.